along to the AFL preview for this weekend. Well, coming off a big round, last round, Digby Beacham, the man to my right. He was coming off all 9 last week. Well done to you, Diggs.
Yeah, Shorty, thank you. Good morning to you.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's hope we can do it all over again and the action gets underway Friday night at Etihad Stadium with the Western Bulldogs taking on the GWS Giants. $2.10 here for the Doggies, $1.72 for GWS. That line set at 4.5.
I've gone GWS, Shorty. I just was really impressed with what I saw down there in Canberra last week. It was the closest thing we've come to seeing GWS at full tilt. And I think if they can produce that performance again, awfully hard to beat, even though there's no Shane Mumford.
Yeah, look, I think they were as impressive as I've seen them all year last week, GWS. I'm going the other way here for the mere fact that they were. And nearly every other game this year when I thought I had a side by the handle, they've come out, produced a big effort the week after. It hasn't always been there, and the Dogs have got a fair bit to play for. They've got home ground advantage here. Look, I'm not confident by any means, but I haven't been all year, let's be honest. So, look, I'm throwing up the Doggies as the outsider, as a winning hope in Friday night footy. Are they good things? Absolutely not. Are they an outside chance? Definitely. Interesting game. Looking forward to seeing if the Giants can back it up 2 weeks in a row. Maybe they can. If they do, I'm not sure the Dogs can match it with them. If they drop off a touch, the Dogs come into play. Moving to the Saturday action, Sydney playing host to Fremantle, $1.10 here for the Red and Whites. Freo at $7. A good win from Freo last week, albeit against moderate opposition. Sydney, well, they're a side that continue to just keep getting the job done. Rolled by Hawthorn a couple of weeks ago, back into the winners list last week. They're a good side.
They are a good side. They're a powerful side, aren't they? And they're a miserly side. They're just so hard to score against with the return of Rampy and Jared McVeigh from injuries. They bully you around the football. Fremantle don't score heavily. I just see it very, very difficult to see how Fremantle can kick more than 8 or 9 goals, and if that's the case, Sydney win and win comfortably.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Red and Whites win and win well, albeit Freo have been pretty good. I think a game like this against the Giants only a couple of weeks ago, they weren't given much hope, and they sort of kept the margin pretty respectable in that game. So I'm not sure exactly how much it'll blow out, but certainly the Red and Whites get the nod. Freo tend not to go so well at this venue either. Sydney have had a good stranglehold over them over the last decade or so. So we'll see how things pan out, but I think Sydney win it pretty well. Geelong take on Richmond, Simmons Stadium on Saturday. This should be a really interesting contest. Geelong, well, almost everything that could go wrong for the Cats went wrong last week. They've got key players now out for extended periods, suspensions. It's in the space of one game, things went from looking reasonable for the Cats to horrendous.
Yeah, they were bullied like they were in that preliminary final last year by Sydney. They were bullied again there last Friday night, down at Simmons Stadium. Now they enter this game against a white-hot Richmond without Duncan, without Hawkins, and clearly Joel Selwood. Richmond get them at a good time, and as much as it's difficult to win down there, I think Richmond are tracking well. I think they win.
I'm with you. Richmond are having a stellar season, and there's no reason to jump off their bandwagon if you're on it right now. Just too many outs for Geelong. It's as simple as that. Sometimes the world conspires against you as a football club, and if you're a Cats fan, you're probably entitled to feel that heading into this weekend. I'm happy enough to tip the Tigers on top. $1.62 for them. The Cats at $2.30 there. The line 7.5. I think the Tigers probably cover that as well, to be honest. Heading on to the Saturday fixture, the Q Clash as it's known up there in Queensland. Brisbane $1.57. Gold Coast $2.40. The line set at 11.5. I don't think I've tipped Brisbane too many times this year, Diggs, but this is a game at home where I can absolutely entertain them to get the job done against the Suns.
Agree. I think they win. No Lynch, no Ablett, clearly no Rocket Eade. Dean Solomon in the hot seat. Normally that sparks something out of the player group. I don't think Gold Coast have got much to give, and I'm not sure they've got a great culture. I don't like them. Like Brisbane, I think they're a side on the move. Brisbane win.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Brisbane's key move is really step up for a game like this. You'd expect Rocky to be right in the mix, getting plenty of it. And Zorko's another guy that's had a stellar season. He's been excellent so far. They've got some real up-and-comers, Brisbane, and this is a chance for them to shine. I'm happy enough to tip the Lions on top up there at the Gabba. Saturday night, we see Essendon playing host to Adelaide. $2.75 here for the Bombers, $1.45 for Adelaide. Line betting set at 17.5. Thought Essendon were disappointing last week. The flip side to that, I don't think I've seen a more clinical performance than what we saw from Adelaide in the showdown last week. I gave Port some hope of actually keeping this game competitive and giving them a real run last week. Adelaide just denied them the football, and Port were not able to work into that clash at any stage.
No, they were not, and I think this game is a shootout, Shorty. I've got it pegged as one, I hope so, and my novelty bet later will reflect that. But Adelaide are just elite at everything they do when they're on song. Essendon are very good offensively. They move the ball quickly, but they go into this game without Fantasia and also Merritt, and that hurts.
It does indeed. The one thing about Adelaide, that scoring power. If they get off the chain and start getting supply up inside that forward 50, they deliver. Guys like Eddie Betts, Josh Jenkins, Taylor Walker, Tom Lynch, Charlie Cameron, they've got midfielders that drop down there and kick goals as well. It's a very potent forward setup. I don't think I left McGovern out of that setup as well. So it's an embarrassment of riches for Adelaide. I think they get the job done here. The other game on Saturday night, West Coast playing host to Carlton at Domain Stadium. $1.16 for the Coasters. The Blues $5.25. Line betting set at 33.5.
West Coast win. They're back home. We know what they do at home. And sides that have beaten them here at Domain Stadium, Shorty, have been GWS, Melbourne and Port Adelaide. The three key stats in those three games has been heavily scoring sides. You can't beat West Coast in an arm wrestle when Carlton don't have the weaponry to get into a shootout. So they try and beat you in an arm wrestle. That's not going to work here in WA against the Eagles, who play the narrow confines of the ground really well. I think West Coast win by 5+ goals.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they cover the line here. I thought they were one of the better line bets of the weekend. So if someone like Kennedy could explode. He's in white hot form. His last 3 weeks have been very good. He could kick 8 or 9 in a game like this with plenty of feed for him up inside that forward 50. Onto the Sunday action, Melbourne taking on St Kilda. $1.63 here for the D's. St Kilda at $2.25. The line set at 7.5. Really interesting contest, this one, Diggs.
Yeah, it is. I've gone for Melbourne only narrowly. I really find it hard to separate these two sides. I think Melbourne at their best, they're a better side than St Kilda, but their last 2 weeks have been really poor against North and also GWS in Canberra. So I've gone for Melbourne. I just think that they'll get enough repeat entries through their midfield.
Yeah, you could be right. I've gone the other way in this game. I thought it was a legitimate flip of the coin job. I didn't think there was too much between them. Melbourne are probably better served at the MCG where this game is than where they were when they met earlier in the year, and they were too good for the Saints. So look, I just think St Kilda are plenty to play for. They've both got a lot to play for, to be honest, but I didn't think there was much between them. And from a value pick, I'm a mile behind. These are the sort of games you've got to have a bit of a stab, and I've got them wrong all year. I'm due to get one or two right, Digby, so hopefully this is one where I do lob the right way with the Saints. But interesting game. From a betting perspective, I thought it was very tough. We move on to the next fixture. Tasmania, Hawthorn playing at North Melbourne. $1.24 the Hawkies, $4 North. Line set at 26.5. Look, I've been relatively impressed with Hawthorn this year. I didn't have massive expectations of them going into the season. Obviously a list that's turning over as the season progresses. I think there's been a bit to like about it from their younger players that have been given an opportunity.
I agree. They're sort of rebuilding in season, aren't they? And they're doing a very good job of it, as you'd expect, with Alistair Clarkson at the helm. Game doesn't hold a lot of appeal to me, Shorty, to be fair. I'm a North Melbourne supporter. Launceston, mid-August, bit crisp, bit bleak. I think Hawthorn win.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm pretty keen on the Hawks. So you only go back a fortnight to their victory over Sydney. It was class football. They really did handle one of the hottest teams in the league right now pretty well. So we then saw last week what Sydney came out and did to Geelong. So that form line does lead up pretty strong. I'm more than happy to stick with the Hawks in this one. And the final game, Sunday, Adelaide Oval to round out proceedings. Port Adelaide $1.35. Collingwood $3.15. Line betting set at 19.5. I've barely been more disappointed in a side than what I was last week with Port Adelaide. Collingwood, well, they'll be happy when this season's over. It hasn't been great for them either. I think $1.35 is probably trim enough for Port Adelaide here, but happy enough to have them on top.
Echo everything you've just said there, Shorty. No Brody Grundy through suspension because of that tackle against Ben Brown. Leaves them short change in the midfield. Wingard is expected back, which means Robbie Gray can play close to the goal. Port win.
Yeah, indeed. Port to round it out. So those tips in recap. Digby going with GWS. I'm going Western Bulldogs Friday night footy. We're both going with Sydney to take care of Fremantle. Richmond to head to Geelong and get the chocolates. Brisbane in the Q clash over Gold Coast. Adelaide to take care of Essendon. West Coast to be too good for Carlton. On Sunday, Digby going with Melbourne. I'm going with St Kilda. Hawthorn to defeat North Melbourne from both of us. And the final game, we're both going with Port Adelaide to be too strong for Collingwood. Diggs, let's get into the multi for this week.
I've gone Fremantle plus 48.5 at the line there, Shorty. I don't think they'll get blown away. They'll try and keep it as tight and congested as possible, which you can do at the SCG. into West Coast, Hawthorn and Port Adelaide to win, and that is paying $3.70.
Yeah, like the way you're thinking there. My multi this weekend, look, I'm pretty keen on Adelaide to go and take care of business against Essendon, so I've got them along with Hawthorn over North Melbourne, and I thought West Coast would cover the line against Carlton this weekend, so I need Adelaide and Hawthorn to win, West Coast to win by 34 or more. If those three things happen, $3.43 from a multi perspective this weekend. What about your novelty, Diggs?
I've gone total matched score bands, Shorty, in regards to the Adelaide Essendon game at Etihad Stadium on Saturday night. I'm expecting a shootout, and if that is the case, I've gone the match band 221 points or more, and that is paying $3.30.
$3.30 looks a nice play there in a very open, free-rolling sort of game of football. Look, I'm going back to my old favourites. These markets aren't up yet, but you know what you're getting with these three, to be honest with you. First goal scorer, there's three men that have been very good to me this year. If you've stuck with them right the way through, you're a million miles in front. I'd suggest you do so for the rest of the season. Benny Brown, he continues to pop up, kick the first goal. You're normally getting around $9 for him. Josh Kennedy, well, he's done it 2 of the last 3 weeks. He's normally around about that $7.50 to $8 range. And Joe Danaher, he's another that's emerged as a ball magnet early in games. He's done it on a host of occasions this year, being the first goal scorer. Again, we're looking around that $8 mark. So look, I'll be taking singles, doubles and trebles with all three of those this weekend. I've done it all year, and I'm certainly telling you right now, it's one of the few winning options that I've found throughout the course of the year, because they have bobbed up at good odds, that particular trio. You can stick with them with a little bit of confidence. Don't forget as well, if you love your English Premier League, we've got an excellent deal going this weekend, the Tap Touch Special. If your side score a goal in match result betting, are going to lose or draw the game, it's money back up to $50. Last year, the first round of EP election, there were 18 out of the 20 sides that scored a goal, so that just gives you a rough idea of how good that is. If you don't have a Tap Touch account, I would suggest you go and open one pretty sharply and take full advantage of that this upcoming weekend. It's on all 10 games for round 1 EPL action this upcoming weekend. Good luck if you're having a play there. Good on you, Diggs. Look forward to catching up, doing it all over again. If you're having a punt this weekend, make sure you do it with Tap Touch.